course, he makes such a comparison there between a narrow and a wide road. It's easy to get a picture of that in your mind. But when we think of it in spiritual terms and raising our children, we have to think of it as the culture is offering our children a wide road. They have all kinds of options on that road. Live how they feel, live according to their own opinion, to other people's opinion. And we know living on a wide road is nothing new, or Jesus wouldn't have talked about it all the way back when he was here on earth. But it is something as parents that we have to think about. And how are we training our children to live? Are we training them to walk on the narrow road? Are they seeing us walk on a narrow road in our lives? Or are we training them that the wide road is an option, that it's something that if they feel like it, that is something they could do? And I was thinking about Proverbs and how Solomon wrote the Proverbs to his son and tried to instruct his son in the wise way to live, living by God's way. And in Proverbs chapter 3, verses 7 and 8, he says this to his son. He says, "Do not be wise in your own eyes." That is the wide road. Being wise in your own eyes, thinking you know the best way, that you know what to do, that what you like, what matters to you is the only thing that matters. It's a very selfish, self-centered way of living. And that's very much encouraged in our culture. And it's going to be easy for our kids to pick that up. Harder is the second part of this: fear the Lord and shun evil. That's doing it God's way. Living on the narrow road is doing it his way, doing what he says. But here's the interesting thing. Just like Jesus said, there's life at the end of the narrow road, there's life on the narrow road, because this is what Proverbs said in 3:8. This will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bones. Fear of the Lord is a shaping of our emotions, a shaping of our heart, learning to be shaped by God, but it brings health and life to us even as we're walking on the narrow road. Then over in Proverbs chapter 4, starting in verse 23, he's writing this to his son: "Above all else, guard your heart, for it is the wellspring of life." Keeping your heart on that narrow road. The wide road is always going to be a temptation for all of us. Why? Because it's normal. It's average. It's what everybody else is doing. It's acceptable. Sometimes being on the narrow road causes us to have choices that are not what everyone else would think would be normal or acceptable. But then we have to come back to what God says to us about the narrow road. There is health and life on that road. There's destruction on the wide road, even if it doesn't seem apparent at first. Continuing on in Proverbs chapter 4, verse 25, he says this to his son: "Let your eyes look straight ahead. Fix your gaze directly before you. Make level paths for your feet. Take only ways that are firm. Do not swerve to the right or to the left. Keep your way from evil." This echoes Hebrews, where it says, fix your eyes on Jesus. Following the narrow road, fixing our eyes on Jesus, will keep us on the narrow path, keep us on the way that leads to life, and there is life along that way. And so interesting that both of these passages, both chapter 3 and chapter 4, he instructs his son to follow the ways of God, and he says, this will bring health to your body. As parents, we have a lot of responsibility for our children's physical well-being and, teaching them to eat right, wrangling them into car seats from the time they're born all the way, until now, even sometimes into elementary school, depending on how tall they are. They keep changing the who should be in a car seat. And how much sleep they get, how much exercise they get. All of these things are things that we take responsibility for and we want to do a good job with. But to have a really healthy kid, to raise a healthy adult from childhood into adulthood, it takes walking on the narrow road. This is what Scripture teaches us. This is how you really actually have a healthy child. You can add in those other physical healthy things, but you've got to start by starting on the narrow road. So I encourage you, parents, as you're doing this, as you're teaching your kids to do this, you are on the right path. This is the right way to go. You're gonna feel sometimes like everybody else is doing it another way, but be encouraged as you keep your kids on the narrow road. You are doing the absolute best thing for them.